The Road Accident Fund Amendment Bill has been made available for public input. The proposed amendments seek to introduce a no-fault 30-day period, which will allow all accident victims to receive medical treatment. Furthermore, the bill will empower the Transport Minister to draw up a list of serious injuries sustained from the road crashes. This list will enable victims who suffer serious injuries contained in the list to qualify for a lump sum for general damages from the Road Accident Fund. This will help greatly to reduce the cost, time and inconvenience associated with certain claimants having to be formally assessed for these injuries. Now, for more on this story, we are joined in the studio by the Road Accident Fund Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Eugene Watson. Good evening, Doctor, and welcome to our show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, Doctor, can you please take us through some of the key principles that are contained in this draft bill?
Okay, there really are three sets of changes which are proposed. The first relates to medical care. We're introducing or proposing a tariff. We're also then looking at 30 days no-fault access to medical services, which is very important for accident victims. The second basket would relate to administrative efficiencies, like how much time we have as an institution to pay for court orders. And the third basket would relate more to effectiveness, access and equity. But we are excited with the proposals.
Now, Doctor, you've called for public comment on these amendments. How exactly can the public participate?
Well, the details are published on the bill. They're also available on our website, as well as we're at the Department of Transport, who is the custodian of legislative changes. And any member of the public is welcome to engage us.
Now, speaking of engagement, when is the deadline for the public participation, and what happens after the deadline?
Well, it's open for 30 days. It was advertised last week. So in the first week of December, we will have the process close. A team of officials from the Department of Transport, as well as from the Road Accident Fund, will look at the various comments and see how we can fine-tune the bill to prepare it for further maturation in the legislative process.
Now, you've mentioned that as an organization you are excited about this bill, but how will claimants be affected by this bill, and also how will they benefit from it directly?
Okay, I mean, the immediate benefit would be that accident victims would have access to healthcare services after the crash for 30 days without having to prove who was at fault and to what extent. The second one relates to us having a tariff. It will provide certainty as to what we pay for, how we pay and how frequently we pay. And the third is a list of serious injuries, where if you do have a serious injuries, some of the administrative steps in the process of adjudicating a claim can then be skipped or fast-tracked. So those are three immediate benefits. We also have proposed a 10,000 Rand funeral benefit, which will greatly assist members of our community and society who are affected by car crashes.
Now, Doctor, what brought about these amendments? Because, I mean, as an organization, you must go through, times when you are distressed about, certain cases not coming through. So what are some of the reasons that made you decide on this?
I think central to all of the changes would be actually rendering efficient public services, to promote access, to promote efficiency, and then also to look at the sustainability of the arrangement. There's at least 100 billion Rand that's still going to be paid through the Road Accident Fund Act. And these changes will ensure that we get better value for money in terms of what we pay for and how we pay.
Now, when you speak about that 100 billion Rand, is that to people that are currently waiting for payouts, or is that 100 billion Rand going forward?
That would be 100 billion Rand for people who are in the system and those who have had a crash or have had an accident take place before today. So if we had to close shop today, you'd still have to pay 100 billion Rand for people who are entitled.
Now, in your first answer, when I was asking you about the actual principles that are entailed in these amendment bills, you mentioned tariffs.
Yes.
Now, will it be a situation where you're saying that a specific injury will be a certain amount of money? How exactly is it going to work so that it's easy for a claimant to know, this is what I'm claiming for, I've got X injury, and this is exactly how much I'm getting?
Okay, at the moment for non-emergency care, we have no tariff. We have no basis for determining what to pay. So how it will help a claimant is that it would become like a medical scheme benefit. Okay. So if you claim for cotton wool swabs, you'd know how much we would pay, and so would the supplier. And that would apply for all services, which allows us to automate the process because you now have certainty on how much you pay for a particular service, an item.
Now, this money, you mentioned now service providers. Is this money going to go to the claimant directly in the case of hospitalization, or is it going to go directly to the service provider, so the hospital or the medical scheme per se?
At the moment, it would depend on who exactly is claiming and how they're claiming. but we pay over R1 billion in medical services to claimants who've prepaid and now want reimbursement, as well as to some suppliers, especially ambulance companies.
Okay, Doctor. Now, what are some of the other things that the bill makes provision for? Because we've mentioned a couple, but what are some of the main highlights that you can mention in this context?
The highlights would be a 10,000 Rand funeral benefit, 30 days access to health services, a list of serious injuries. We define who is a medical practitioner who can perform the various assessments and fill out the forms. And we also then look at the amounts of time given to the institution to make payments. Those would be the principal changes which come in, and as I had mentioned, it speaks to effectiveness, access, as well as healthcare support.
Speaking of access, I know a lot of people who they go through the route of, third parties, so a middleman to get their money. And most of the time, people either get less than what they're entitled to, or they don't get their money at all. How are you as an organization going to ensure that that middleman sort of gets cut out in a sense?
Well, I think the middleman or that microeconomy costs over R4.5 billion a year. So it's not insignificant amounts of money. In these amendments, the aim really is to promote efficiency. But in future policy developments which are underway with the Road Accident Benefit Scheme, the idea is to remove intermediaries from the equation so that the engagement takes place between the institution, the claimant, regarding what their needs are.
Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.